Being open to feedback is part of partnership. Being coachable because everybody's body is different.
Sex is always a thing that we learn together, right? Like
Absolutely.
none of us are born with an innate knowledge of like what our partners want from us sexually. We only
Absolutely.
get better through conversation.
Consent
Please. Yeah.
isn't just, yeah, it's not just, well, she didn't say no.
Mhm.
Consent is ongoing. At any point, consent can stop.
Yeah. And can
Consent
be withdrawn, right?
and
At
can
any
be
time.
withdrawn at
Yeah.
any time.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Wait and the Wonder, our now officially launched podcast.
I
So excited.
know.
I'm Jason Herndon. I am a licensed psychologist.
And I'm Philicia Ross. I am a licensed clinical social worker and I'm a licensed mental health professional.
Yeah. This is where we take what's buzzing in pop culture and relationships and look at it through our therapist's eyes, not to diagnose the internet, but to explore the nuance that gets lost in hot takes.
Because usually there is more to the story. And today we're talking about sex. It's a sex episode, everybody. It's a sex episode.
Welcome.
Welcome. Specifically, though, with sex, how to communicate about it without shame and what enthusiastic consent looks like. I think we may even touch on terms and actually
Mhm.
define those terms. And then why so many of us just struggle to say what we need in the bedroom. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
took me a while
But
to get that out, but I got it
I
out.
mean, it's a lot. We're
It's a
diving
lot.
deep
There's a
this week,
lot in this
folks.
episode. Yeah.
There really is. Yeah. But first, before we jump into any of that, how are you doing out of session?
Man, I'm tired, friend. There's a lot going on. And I've actually really been thinking about accountability this week.
Mm,
So, what is today? Today is the 21st.
yeah.
So, we've already explained that we record this in advance. So, this week, uh, there's been a lot of talk about collective accountability and what we have let slide in our culture. There's this new documentary that dropped on Netflix
Hmm.
about America's Next Top Model. Reality Check, I think, is what it's called.
Yeah.
And I watched it. What I will say is trigger warning for those for this next part for those who have ever had disordered eating in the past because it is pretty triggering. And then also those who may be SA victims or survivors, it is pretty triggering. I did not realize that before I went in, and I have both of those in my personal background. So what I did realize, it's just been heavy, right? How much we
Yeah.
normalized in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's just, yeah, it's been a bit heavy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I haven't seen it, but I have heard it and seen all the clips on the internet and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But sort of what specifically do you think you've been sort of sitting with?
Yeah, I think just the exploitative nature of everything,
Mm,
the blackface, the
mm,
body shaming, the forced dental work. Like, I think when I was, yeah, because I Top Model started when I was 13.
okay.
So I knew, I think, after a certain time that some of it was problematic, but I guess I didn't realize how deeply media, specifically whiteness in media, normalized harm and we all just consumed it. Yeah, we all
We
just watched
did.
it. Mm.
Yeah. And we didn't quite have the language or the frameworks, I guess, that we have now to critique it in the way that we do now.
Yeah, and that doesn't take away from it being harmful then, it just means
No.
that we didn't know how to name we were also teenagers. Like, a lot of us many of us were teenagers, we were kids, and so we didn't know how to name that. I don't think we were responsible for naming that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Also tired, but not
Yeah.
bad. So this week I've really just been watching my son, whose name is Miles. He is 4, parade around in his new T-ball backpack. So they'll be starting T-ball for the very first time
Oh
in the
my
next few weeks.
goodness.
We have wrapped up basketball.
Mhm.
Now we're going to T-ball. We're just trying to let him try all these different things, see what it is that he likes. And this backpack, so we had to get him a bat and a glove and
Mhm.
a ball, all the little stuff that he needs. And so my wife also got him a backpack to just carry this stuff around.
How
And the
cute.
backpack is like almost as tall as he is, right? I think it probably like he has like feet and like neck and
Not
head above
feet.
the backpack. It's so tall. It's so tall. And so he just has spent like all week, like every time we look up, he has got this backpack on and he's just like
That's
walking around the house,
so
and
cute
he's
because
just
he's
so
ready.
excited.
He's
He is
ready.
ready. He
He's
is
ready to
in all the
go.
pretend play. He's like, I'm going to go to practice, Daddy. I'll see you. And he walks into the dining
See
room and
you.
then he comes back. It's like, it was canceled because of the snow. He just a whole whole world is being built here. It's just so it really is it's beautiful to see his
Aw.
joy, right? He's just
Yeah.
so excited. And it's a
Yeah.
good reminder to me just to notice the
Yeah.
small things, right?
Yeah.
Particularly when like so much around us feels really heavy, you
Yeah.
know.
Those
So yeah.
moments of levity are really necessary, those moments of joy. It
Yeah,
reminds us to stay close to our humanity, and we need those moments. That's really cute and really sweet, and good luck to you, Miles, on your T-ball.
he's
You're
gonna
gonna
do great.
kill it. You already got the attitude down. You're gonna do well.
For real. He does. The child is I can't be too mad because his attitude is my attitude. And so he'll say stuff and I'll be like, "Well, I do say that." It's
Well,
like, yeah,
I see
yeah.
where
It's
you got it from.
alright.
Alright, yeah.
Gabe recognizes Gabe.
That's so cute. He is adorable.
He's great. Yes. We should probably get into it.
Yes.
But before we dive into today's main topic, we're gonna do something a little bit new.
Yeah, we're starting a new segment. So we're calling this segment Talk Back, where we respond to comments and questions from our listeners.
And our first one is from Corbin, who we shouted out in our last episode, who's
Yes.
actually our coach. We will both work with him. That's how we met.
Hmm.
And he left a really thoughtful, detailed comment on episode one, where
Hmm.
we talked about homosocial men and misogyny.
Right. And so he sent it to us through voice text. So I am just going to look at my summary. He's pointing out that our societal training teaches boys and girls to dislike each other, or at least to separate from each other. Boys learn that playing like girls or exhibiting feminine behaviors makes them less than, like gay, weak, the runt of the litter type language, and that girls learn that men are dangerous.
Yeah. And so he's also saying that when women hate men, there's this cultural understanding of, oh, well, men are dangerous, so it makes sense. But when men hate women, it's framed as misogyny that they need to grow out of or overcome. And he thinks that we're doing both paradigms a bit of a disservice by not highlighting that both genders are pitted against each other from the jump. I will
Hmm.
add a fun word, which is misandry, which is this is the opposite of misogyny, right? So when people hate men, right, in the
Yep.
same way that we use the term misogyny, it's misandry.
Misandry. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
Misandry, word of the day.
Word of the
Well,
day.
so his main point is that men who think women are like less funny aren't necessarily coming from a place of superiority. Maybe they are trying not to be left behind by their maleness. They're
Hmm,
trying to exude the manliness that society tells them that they need in order to attract a partner, and maintain their status.
sure. Yeah. And so we also said that male friendships feel safer to him because, quote, you never know when you're going to do something wrong towards a woman or they're going to perceive something differently than you intended. And he's saying if we want to sort of call out men for not having platonic relationships with women, we need to
Mhm.
honor the difficulties and the barriers that they face.
Yeah, so there's a lot here, and I really do appreciate Corbin. I want to say that thank you guys, thank you everyone who has watched us so far. Like, I woke up this
Yeah,
morning and like 16 people have viewed us, and like we're new. We're very new. I don't think
we are.
anyone really knew that we were doing this. So for the fact that like, in 24 hours, because I think we just posted yesterday,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
came out, did our debut. And so thank you guys.
Thank you.
Woohoo. Like that's like
Yeah.
that's a full coffee shop, and I'm appreciative. It's a full
I love
coffee
it. Yeah.
it's a
I'll
full
take it.
coffee shop. If
Yep.
I saw 20 people in a coffee shop, I'd be like, "Wow, it's a little crowded in here."
Yeah. I was fully prepared for it to just be you and me.
0. You
We
and
had two
me.
views.
Yeah, and probably our partners and your my partner. Oh, no. Well, yeah, it's
I don't
okay.
know if she's watched the whole episode yet. So if she's listening,
Well,
I know.
I appreciate her nonetheless. My partner watched it because I fell asleep with it on, and he's like, "Oh, I watched it." I was like, "Oh, thank you." Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. So I do appreciate you, Corbin, for engaging with this because this is exactly the kind of conversation we want to have, where we can
Mhm.
push back and build on each other's ideas and insights and
Yeah.
enlightenments about everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for sort of sending this comment in. I think there are just some things that he's naming that are absolutely real, right? Boys and men do get socialized, right? In
Mm-hmm.
ways that make cross gender friendships difficult. I think I touched on that on the end of that episode, but not as much depth, right? There are real fears about being misunderstood, about
Mm-hmm.
being accused, right? And the box of masculinity, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a
Mm-hmm.
second, is certainly restrictive and harmful for us.
Absolutely. And I want to hold space for that harm. patriarchy does harm men. So there's actually
Yes.
research on this. Like we're talking about, men experience higher rates of chronic disease and death for nearly all leading causes compared to women, despite having more social and economic power. Like that is a part of facts. Those are in
Mhm.
research. And a lot of that is because masculine norms encourage emotional suppression and discourage help seeking, even in the most physical of ways. And I guess I can even add on here, like Eric Dane passed. I'm so sad about. I'm still really processing it
Mhm.
because I do think that he was a part of like a generation, right? Like I think
Yeah.
when, yeah, for sure, like Bad Boys and Euphoria, and then we all know him from Grey's Anatomy. That is Dr.
Yeah.
McSteamy. Like,
Rest in
so
power, McSteamy.
loved him. And so, his battle with ALS, and so just this kind of socialization, I think I even saw Kev on stage.
Mhm.
I know we're both fans of him. He had said, like, "Men, please go to the doctor," and y'all called him everything but a child of God for, like,
Wild.
telling yeah, he was y'all need to go get checkups. It's okay
Yeah.
to get a checkup,
Mhm.
and it doesn't mean that you're gay, but for all of these reasons, all of these socializations, right? Men have, again, the more social and economic power, but then there is this shame of like going to the doctor and getting checked out because somehow that may mean you're less than in some way. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that that's right. And men are also, in addition to sort
Mhm.
of these physical conditions, they're also at much higher risk for depression, for maladaptive coping, for relationship challenges, and for suicide, right? Because of
Mhm.
these hyper rigid gender norms.
Exactly. And so the concept that you referenced earlier called the man box, which is
Hmm.
this rigid set of expectations about what it
Yeah.
means to be a quote unquote real man, includes like superiority, emotional suppression, lack of physical intimacy with other men,
Hmm.
socially like aggressive behavior, like I am men. I just imagine that in my
Exactly like that.
brain.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like that's what it comes across
It's
to
pretty
me.
close. Yeah.
So yeah, and the research shows that men inside this man box are more likely to have experienced bullying, perpetrate violence, and they struggle with their mental health.
Yeah, socialization that Corbin is
Mhm.
describing, where boys are thought to distance themselves from kind of anything feminine, that's real. It is true. It is also harmful to boys and to men.
Absolutely. And here's where I do want to add some color, some complexity. Just because there are barriers doesn't mean the outcome isn't misogyny.
Say more.
So, yes, we know that boys are socialized and are taught that associating with girls or feminine things makes them less than, right? Yes, they're taught that they need to exude certain behaviors to be seen as manly and to attract partners if they're hetero. But the result of that socialization is that women still are devalued. They're still seen as less than, less funny, less interesting, less worthy of genuine friendship, and that's still misogyny. Even if it's learned, even if it's painful for men too, it is still misogyny.
Right. I think that that's right. So, this idea of understanding the roots, right? Sort of
Mm,
how did we get here?
mhm,
Doesn't excuse the harm. And I would say too, I think that when we're talking about this, we are really having two simultaneous conversations, right? And I think conversation one is like, how did men collectively get here? Right.
mhm,
And then I think
mhm,
conversation two that we're having at the same time is like, and then where do we go from
mhm,
here?
mhm, mhm.
Right.
And I think that this is where patriarchy as the framework
Hmm.
comes in, right? Because patriarchy doesn't just harm women, it harms everyone by enforcing these rigid gender roles.
Yeah.
Men get social and economic power, sure, but they also get trapped in roles that prevent them from being seen as a fully expansive human being.
Right. That's right. We are not supposed to cry,
Mhm.
right? We are not supposed to be vulnerable. We are
Mhm.
not supposed to seek help. We are
Mhm.
not supposed to be nurturing, right? So we could have a whole conversation about how
Mhm.
this dovetails with approaches to fatherhood, right? And that
Mhm.
kind of thing. We're not supposed to be nurturing. We're not supposed to be kind or compassionate, right? Because within this masculine messaging, right, the idea is like those are soft emotions, those are feminine, female emotions. Those are not for us.
Yeah. So then I can imagine that that also impacts if you guys have emotionally expressive, intimate friendships with one another.
Hmm.
which is really tragic because I love my girlfriends. And I remember watching The Brothers. Like, have you've seen that movie? Let me
Yeah,
look
that
up
is
The
true.
Brothers to make sure that I'm referencing the right movie. The Brothers is a romantic comedy, and it features all our favorites. My favorites, specifically. It I think has Bill Bellamy, D.L. Hughley. D.L. Hughley was in this movie. Interesting. I remember Shamar Moore and Morris Chestnut specifically, but that's just me.
Yeah, I could see.
Oh, yeah. But I
I could see
remember
why.
seeing that movie and being like, huh, this is such a beautiful representation about what male friendships with Black men can look
Yeah.
like. I also think of The Wood. I'm from
Yes.
California, so yeah. I
Mhm.
knew about The Wood before I knew about The Brothers, but I'm thinking of those things and just like how there was vulnerability in those movies. So it's not like
Mhm.
there's not a blueprint, but maybe the type of vulnerability that is quote unquote acceptable. And I think at the end of the day, women are still bearing the brunt of the harm
Yeah.
because they are still the ones being devalued and dismissed and
Mm.
oftentimes endangered. Yeah, especially when we
Yeah,
think of our Black trans women. Yeah.
absolutely. I think
Yeah.
that's a really important point,
Yeah.
and we can hold both of these things as true at the same time.
Mhm.
Right, and that is like patriarchy is harmful to us all, right? It is harmful to
Mhm.
men, it is harmful to women, it is
Mhm.
harmful to our they thems, right? Like it's harmful to all of us all the time. It's harmful to children and adults and
Mhm.
teenagers and the elderly, to all of us all the time. And women are disproportionately harmed.
Absolutely.
Mhm,
I think something to note, and this may be part of a bigger conversation, is
mhm,
that there have been conversations with trans men that they go through this period of, whoa, like
mhm.
I don't know if I want to be a part of this club. This is not
Yeah,
what I like. This is who I am and want to be.
yeah.
And also everything that comes with, like, manhood and the
Mhm,
patriarch, like, that is very, disorienting and destabilizing in a lot of ways. And so I think that kind of is something to double click on in future episode, but I do wanna push back on this idea that male friendships feel, like, quote, unquote, "safer," because you never know when you're going to do something wrong towards a woman,
mhm.
because what does that actually mean,
Yeah. Let's sit
right?
with it a little bit. Yeah, unpack it.
Yeah, I think, at least from my point of view, this is not the only point of view, but from my
Mhm,
point of view, I think that there could be a little fear of accountability.
hmm,
It means that there's a fear that a woman might name a harm or set a boundary, and maybe that feels unsafe. But women navigating the world with men who might harm them, that's actual physical and emotional safety, not just discomfort with being called out.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we have one piece that's about obviously like violence,
Hmm.
safety from violation, right? And then we have the other piece that is really about sort of protection from criticism, consequences, a poor reputation, that kind of thing.
Precisely. And those are not mutually exclusive. They're not the same thing. But I also
Right.
want to name something else here because
Okay.
it's not just on men to dismantle the man box. Women, like, we have work to do as well. And like, I before we go here,
Quick
before
preface.
quick preface, because y'all like to tussle and I like to block. So
Hmm.
that's just my preference. People like to tussle, and sometimes I like to block. So just please keep it respectful. I know that this next part is going to probably bring up ruffle some feathers, but yes, women, we have work to do as well.
Yeah, 100%. So what I would say is this, the patriarchy will always assign agents, right? And it
Hmm.
is far more inclusive in the way that it assigns agents than in the way that it forces us to live, right? It doesn't care if you're gay. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't care if you're queer. It doesn't care if you're non-binary. It doesn't care if you're a woman or a man, right? Like the patriarchy will use you if you let it, right? So
Amen.
women can certainly say,
Hmm.
you know, I want a sensitive man. I know women like this. There are women like this in my family, in
Hmm.
my extended family, right? I want a sensitive man. But really, what they mean is like in very specific
Hmm.
contexts.
Yep.
Because if this man cries, if this man is vulnerable, if this man is soft, right, in any kind of a way outside of an
Hmm.
approved context, then it is a problem. They are turned off, right?
Absolutely.
They're upset.
They're policing masculinity. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Women police masculinity. We enforce, and when I say we, I say women in general,
Hmm.
the man box sometimes just as much as men do. And I know that that may be uncomfortable, but mothers do teach their sons a lot of the times, and
Yeah.
fathers too, like boys don't cry or you need to man up. Women in relationships expect their male partners to be providers, to be emotionally stoic, to not show weakness. And they define what weakness is. So you
Hmm.
then put this man in a bind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's also this things that happens, right? When men
Hmm.
do open up, that
Hmm.
if some women, not all women, some women then weaponize that vulnerability later.
Exactly. And research does show that women, including mothers and romantic partners, often hold men to these very rigid, like masculine standards. We want them to be quote unquote real men, but then defining that usually means that you want them to be complicit in maintaining the very box that harms them. For example, like a man shares something vulnerable with his partner, and then in an argument, she throws it back in his face.
Right.
Or he's trying to be vulnerable about a hobby or a like, and it's like, "Oh, you like that?" Like,
Hmm.
friend, hey?
Right. Well, because I mean, it reinforces exactly what Corbin is talking about in his
Yeah,
response to us, right? Which is that
yeah.
men learn that being vulnerable is not safe. And then that
Mhm.
lesson is reinforced every time they express vulnerability that is then weaponized against
Uh,
them, right? Because even when they do it,
mhm.
right, it gets used against them.
Yeah, so if we're gonna ask men to step out of this man box, we have to then create the conditions where it feels
Hmm.
safe and where it's actually safe. And that means women, we have to do our work.
What does that look like?
I mean, I think it means interrogating our own expectations. Like, do you expect your male partner to always initiate dates? Do you expect him to, make more money than you, pay for everything? Do you
Mm.
expect him to never cry? Do you get uncomfortable when he shows his emotions? Do you get uncomfortable when he cries outside of it being a quote unquote acceptable life event like a death, which, right? Do you tell him to be a man when he's struggling, if he hasn't finds himself out of work? And, I don't know if you've heard, but the job market is pretty trash, friends.
Hmm.
If he is deciding to live with his mom or parents or caretakers, and you also live with your caretakers, but it's like, my man has to be stable, even though
Yeah.
what does stability mean if you're also not that definition of stable that you require from him, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's examining how
Hmm.
we reinforce these traditional gender roles,
Hmm.
even when we are saying verbally that what we want is more equality in our relationships.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so it's really about our own internalized misogyny,
Mm.
because women can perpetuate harm toward other women. Like we be slut shaming, we be body policing, we be competing for male approval while blaming men for patriarchy.
Hmm. Sounds like you're saying, like we're not exempt from the work just because we're harmed by the system.
Imagine that.
Weird. Imagine.
Imagine that. And I think that there's this tendency to say, well, all men are trash, or men have power so they can't be victims. And that erases men who've experienced abuse, assault, or
Hmm.
marginalization,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate. Yeah.
Hmm. And I mean, I think it also just shuts down any possibility of
Mhm.
coalition building or
Yes.
any sense of like collective liberation.
Yeah, and let me say this. Y'all can't be about collective liberation and then participate in like the gender wars,
Mm.
right? There are facts. And if the default is men are the enemy, then we can't actually work together to dismantle the systems that harm all of us.
Mm.
And again, like Jason said, some men are like they're state agents of patriarchy. Like it will, if it can use you, it will. But that doesn't mean that everyone should be treated equally in that space.
Right.
Right.
I think you were gonna talk a little bit about, your favorite show, Reasonable Doubt.
Oh,
Tell me
reasonable
how this
doubt.
ties in. I, like,
Yeah,
saw it come up in the
I
script.
did wanna
Yeah.
tie in Reasonable Doubt.
Yeah.
I did wanna tie in Reasonable Doubt. I think it's been something that when I was working on this episode, I was like, "You know what? This actually fits in well and, like,
Mm.
flows into what we're gonna talk about." So there's a show on Hulu called Reasonable Doubt. I know that you haven't seen it.
I saw the first 2
Ah,
episodes of the first season.
the first Okay, so you haven't seen it.
Okay. Shots fired.
I'm just joking. I'm like, I'm over here like, "Oh, so you saw a season, so you know."
It didn't sound like you were joking.
Friend. I was like, I don't think you see.
Side eye was real.
It was. It was. It's probably gonna be a clip, but I really was joking. I was like, you haven't seen it. No, but Okay, so Reasonable Doubt does have 3 seasons. Season
Okay.
3 just wrapped. I will say it do I think it's a hard watch? Yeah, like, my partner really be like, "Why you watch this?"
He
But
knows.
it's interesting to me. So they're in season 3, and this will be spoilers, so y'all could just go ahead and skip to our next
Mhm.
segment because this is probably gonna take up the majority of at least these next few minutes. There's a storyline where there's a former child star, his name is Ozzy, who's implicated in a murder case of his
Okay.
girlfriend. And as the case unfolds, it comes out that his longtime manager, Monica, has been in a sexual relationship with him since he was a young teenager. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So she had been grooming him, abusing
Yep.
him, even though he didn't count it as abuse. And it's been hidden for years. And when it finally comes out in this very dramatic scene, everyone has to reckon with how predatory behavior was just kind of allowed to happen to him. People knew something was off, but there was just so many things that fell through the crack for this character. Yeah.
Mm.
And they
Mhm.
didn't protect him.
Yeah, and I imagine at least a part of the idea of, like, why people didn't see is because he's male, she's female.
Exactly. There's this
Mhm.
narrative that boys and men always want sex. And so how could it be abuse? Like, of
Mhm.
course he would want that. People either don't believe it or they act like he should have been grateful.
Yeah, right. I think that too is right, like a part of this man box idea
Mhm.
where, boys are supposed to want sex. They're supposed to be ready for
Mhm.
sex at all times. They're supposed to be excited about any and all sexual attention,
Mhm.
specifically from women.
Mhm. And I think that's what this show does really well is show how predatory behavior does get swept under the rug in particular communities,
Mhm.
across race, across class. But in this case, we're talking about the Black community to protect perpetrators or to deny that these problems even exist. And
Mm.
victims, especially boys and men who have been abused by women, feel isolated and feel like they can't speak up. Yeah.
Well, right, because like, who's gonna believe them, right, or
Yeah.
take it seriously?
Yeah. I think this is where the all men are trash rhetoric becomes really
Mhm.
dangerous because it makes it impossible to hold space for men and boys as victims and it erases their humanity and it erases their pain. Yeah.
Hmm.
hmm
What do we do instead?
I mean, I think the patriarchy is trash, right? Like, I think that's where we start. That's where we say the
Yeah.
patriarchy is trash. The system of patriarchy is trash. And it was started by trash individuals, right? Rigid gender roles are trash. The systems that pit us against each other are trash. We say all of that is trash. But individual people, men, women, non binary pals, gay, straight, trans, whoever, we're capable of both harm and healing as individuals. That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like we also need to hold people accountable for
Mhm,
their actions while
mhm.
also working to dismantle the systems that shape those actions, right? We can do both at the same time.
Yeah, so to Corbin's point, yes, men face real barriers to forming platonic friendships with women. Yes, the socialization is deep and the fear is
Mhm.
real, but the solution isn't to excuse misogyny or to avoid accountability.
Yeah, I think the solution is for men to do the work of unlearning harmful messages while women do the work of not reinforcing those
Mhm.
messages.
Men need to challenge other men, right?
Yeah.
Call out the misogyny. Women needs to call out what they need to call out as well. But for men specifically, model what it looks like to value women as full human beings, right?
Yeah.
Form actual platonic friendships with women. Stop listening to that man. What's his name? Cam. Stop listening to that Newton man.
Don't
Stop it. Whew.
I felt a little bad. I told you this private. I felt a little bad. I thought I went a little hard on him in the last episode. And then Cam Newton, unmarried, father of 9, said that women lose their value when they have children. And I was like, never mind.
I'm recreating the meme. Stop
Moving
listening.
right along from Cam Newton, I would say, women, I think so. Another thing that would be useful, right, is
Yeah.
women too have to think about how it is that they go about
Yeah.
enforcing the man box, right? How they weaponize
Mhm.
vulnerability,
Mhm.
how they benefit in some ways from the traditional gender roles while they claim to want equality.
Absolutely. And both of us need to create space for men to be fully human. Men and women need to
Mhm.
create space. Non binary folks, folks who identify with the masculine. how can we create space for men to be fully human, to be vulnerable, to seek help, to form
Yeah.
emotionally intimate friendships and relationships without their masculinity being threatened and without them being called all the things that they be calling folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I think overall that benefits everybody.
And I also will name that we can't say we're for gender equality if
Mm,
we're also not fighting racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, all of it, because those
mhm.
systems are deeply interconnected. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. We
Mhm.
really can't say I'm a feminist and then be transphobic, right? We can't
Mhm.
advocate for women's rights and then ignore Black
Mhm.
women, disabled women, poor women.
Yep. Trans women, selective solidarity isn't solidarity at all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So that work is intersectional liberation, right? Which
Mhm.
is a mouthful, but
Mhm.
really we all get free together or none of us get free.
But bum. Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all she wrote. So Corbin, thank you for pushing us to think more deeply about this.
Yeah.
And if anyone else has thoughts or pushback, we want to hear it as long as you're respectful. That's why we're calling this talk back, because we do want
Yeah.
to talk back and forth. We enjoy doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Transition. This week's main topic. Imagine that, the main topic, actually.
I know. 35 minutes in, we're ready. And now for the episode to
And
begin.
now for the episode to begin. This week's main topic came from a Reddit post that you sent me.
Uh huh.
And when I read it, I was like, well, this is a whole episode because,
Yeah.
whoa. Yeah.
And when I first read it, I couldn't believe that someone would talk to like someone that they care about, like a lover in good faith. But then I remember just how
Mhm.
awkward and fearful people can be when it comes to talking about sex.
Yeah. So I'm going to set it up and I'm going to read the post. It'll
Hmm.
be on the screen for those of you who are watching to read. But it starts, am I wrong for thinking that the guy I slept with giving me ways to improve is weird? This is written by a 17-year-old, y'all. So let just roll with me. I'll try to make this super short because I'm not so sure what to think. Yesterday night, I had sex for the first time ever with a friend. I'm 17 and he's 18. We've known each other for a couple of years and are not that close, but we're on good terms. We were talking about this once before, and since he's a bit older than me, he knows more about all of this. He said he could teach me some things since it'll be my first time, and it didn't seem like a bad idea. It was all right, it wasn't amazing, but I didn't think it was that bad, and he was acting normal after. Today, I met up with a few friends and he was there. At one point, we're sitting next to each other and he tells me how he's honestly dissatisfied from yesterday. I ask him what he means and he go on. I think it's them meant to say
Hmm.
he goes on about all the things I did wrong and how he thought I would have been much better. He told me that for next time, especially if it's not with him, to arch my back more, make eye contact, say his name more prettily. What is prettily? Make more noises, initiate things myself, be open to more stuff. He tried to do a few things to me multiple. I'm going to insert times and I
Hmm.
stopped him. So I think that's what it's about. This is in parentheses, and et cetera, et cetera. He also told me I was too tight. I didn't really say anything because I was in shock and I had no clue what to even respond. I don't
Fair.
really want to talk to my friends about this, but I just wanted to know if this is normal or if I'm overthinking it.
This, there's a great deal wrong here.
Well, I'll let you start because, first of all, what is prettily?
Couldn't tell you, right? I couldn't tell you. I mean, I think let's start with just the framing here,
Yeah.
right? Which is where he positions himself as someone who would teach her because he's
Mm-hmm.
older by 7, 8 months, I imagine, right? And thus more experienced,
Yes.
right? That already sets up this kind of power dynamic
Yes.
where she's the student and he's
Mm-hmm.
the expert. We do see this dynamic
Which,
sometimes of this like teacher student, mentor mentee kind of vibe in a romantic relationship. That
mm-hmm.
usually goes poorly.
Yes, and this is how poorly it can go because he then
Hmm.
uses this dynamic to criticize her performance, like telling her like she's failing a class, like sex was a class she failed and she was going to get a grade from him. That's yeah.
Yeah. I think too, like doing this publicly or
Mhm.
not publicly, I guess, but in public, right? Doing this
Yes.
in public
Yeah.
in this sort of group setting where they have
Mhm.
friends around. In my
Mhm.
head, they're like out at a
Yeah.
restaurant, at a something, right? It's just humiliating,
Yeah, like,
right?
I'm drinking my boba, and here you go. Hey, 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 hey.
You like that boba? You're like, yeah. And then I'm
Yeah,
like, you're bad at sex.
you're bad as heck. What? I
We
couldn't
should talk
even.
about it. Yeah.
It's not feedback, it's almost like negging. Like, this is pickup
Yes.
artist bullshit. Like, I can't even. It is bad. You're bad at it, sir.
Yes.
Them, they, that. I
Yes.
don't know,
Uh
but you're
huh.
bad at it.
Yeah. When I read this, I thought about the pickup artist. Did you ever see that show?
No.
Okay, so just quickly, there was a show on MTV called The Pickup Artist. I had to look this up. It started in 2000 and ended in 2008. And basically the whole idea of the show is
Hmm.
this guy who preferred to be called Mystery, that should tell you where we're going with this, would teach guys who were ostensibly unattractive or bad socially or
Mhm.
whatever. Like it was all a bunch of like stereotypes about men too, right?
Okay.
Who couldn't get girls, basically how to
Mhm.
like trick girls into wanting to be with them by like, and one of the tools was negging, right? Which is where you say something negative to them about their appearance or their personality or just like kind of who they are.
Mhm.
And that the idea was that like that brings a certain kind of woman to the table, right? If I tell you you're stupid, then you're like, tell me more, boy, right? Well, I don't know women like that, but they were like, it was like a school thing, right? So each week they would teach them, right, one of these skills, and they would go out to a club, not a real club, a fake club, obviously, for the show. And then they would try and use these skills on women and see like who could basically pick one of them up and maybe get them to go back somewhere with them.
That's.
And that was speaking of like shows that
I
we're
was
going to
just
talk more
thinking
about
that.
this,
I
right?
was
In the
like,
on the back, and
my
it's like we all watched it. This happened, and we all let it happen.
my goodness. And I
Mhm.
graduated school. There's so many things that I'm just like, no, girl, it wasn't you.
No,
Wasn't you at all. It was I sound like my mother. It's the damn TVs. That's what it was. It was
yeah,
the TVs.
really, right? Like we were getting this. So again, 2007.
I
Right,
graduated
I
high
was
school in
in
2007.
that's an upsetting comment. Into no, we're just moving right past that. That's what I graduated from college, but that's fine. But we were
Sorry,
both.
friend.
We were both. I thought that earlier when you were like, I was
Yeah.
13 when America's Next Top Model came out. And it's
Yeah.
like
I'm like, how old were you? You know?
older,
Okay.
older than 13,
Oh, okay.
13.
Okay.
But I think that that's such an interesting perspective, right? Because
Yeah.
I think about the harm of these shows
Mm.
in terms of like the messaging that I was getting as a young man who was
Yeah.
trying to get out into the world and attract women and maybe date and maybe hook up and all this other stuff. And like these were the messages that I was getting. And I could see in the moment that it's like, this is ridiculous. This is not a thing that you need to do, like, to try
Mhm.
and get women, right, to name call them or whatever. But I don't know that everybody had that same reaction, right? That was
No.
like, oh, this is ridiculous. It is not something that you should be out here doing,
I mean, if
right?
you
And
look
I
at our
think
administration, clearly not.
right. Well, certainly. But what I also think about, right, based on what you were saying a second ago, is when you were a child,
Child.
right, when this show
Yeah.
would have been on, right, when you were seeing these things from, A&TM, and like that's just it's really hitting me, right, in this conversation that it's like because
Mhm.
I think about it as like, oh, I was, in
Yeah,
college,
your
right?
brain
I
was
was, yeah,
there.
whatever.
Your brain was
But
there, your brain
yeah.
was developed, but, like, still being impressionable, and, like, I keep a picture of myself from when I
Mm,
was like, I think this is my sophomore going into my junior year of high school, and I keep a picture of her to remind myself, like, it wasn't you.
mhm.
It was those damn phones.
True,
It wasn't
true.
you. It really wasn't. The messaging for a curvy, dark-skinned girl, and I did not grow beyond this. I was 5'2" in this picture. This sign
Mhm.
is almost taller than me when I look at it. I'm like, dang, that's not. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
short, but I did not grow much more. And a dark-skinned, curvy girl growing up in a predominantly white suburb of San Diego County, like I didn't see many folks. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
labeled as fat. And then, like, you know, having to watch what I eat. And then I will talk about this much later on with an experience I had, but like, yeah, like it's really hitting me of like, my goodness,
Mhm.
child, like, whew, shout
Mhm.
out to us.
Yeah. Again, right, to bring it back to this Reddit post, right? She is 17.
Mm. And this
right?
is her first sexual experience. And
Mhm.
instead of
Right.
letting it be a mutual exploration of like, okay, this is how I can experience pleasure, it becomes about her performing for him.
Right. And performing, I think, in very specific ways, right? So this like same in a more prettily and like you, I'm like, well, I don't know what that means exactly.
I mean, he wants ego strokes. That's what it means.
Hmm.
He wants to
Hmm.
feel like he did something to her, not experience something with her. Honestly, I think that that is a tall tale of the signs when we even go back to what we were just discussing about what does it mean for men and the viewpoint of patriarchy and
Yeah,
intersected with sex. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. And so like I want to like go back to what I wrote in my notes, right? So I like write out all my thoughts on, every episode that we do. And it's just what I was writing a little bit about is just the amount of shame that
Mhm.
men tend to carry around sex, right?
Mhm.
Because we were told we should be great at it naturally. We are praised for the number of conquests that we have, which really take the idea of like pleasure and mutual enjoyment kind of like out of the
Mhm.
equation. It's just like a numbers game, right? When we're praised for conquests. And so then like normal feedback just around our
Mhm.
own performance can feel like emasculating criticism.
Yeah, I also think, like, even calling it conquest, like, even that
Mhm.
language, because words matter, of like,
Yeah,
that is dehumanizing in itself, right? Like, now this person that you are sharing this experience with, now you're not sharing it. Like,
right.
this is now something to do. This is there's no human attached to that. And so it sounds like you're saying, like, now this response that he gave to this person, this woman, a young girl, 'cause she's a child,
Yep,
is
child.
coming from his own insecurity. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be. I think for all intents and purposes, he's also a child, right? And so, like,
Yeah.
we shouldn't overlook that. Like, he
Yeah,
is
yeah, that's very
18, so
true.
like
He's
he is
18,
legally adult, but
but
developmentally, he's also a
developmentally,
child,
yeah, where is he at?
right?
Well,
And so, I don't want
yeah.
to go too hard on a child,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
and
right.
and
I think that right. I think it could be that this is coming from his own sense of insecurity. Like, if the sex wasn't amazing for him,
yeah.
then instead of thinking, we're both new at this, we're both figuring it out together, he can frame this out as like, well,
Mm,
this is her fault. And then if it's
yeah,
her fault, then he can still be the expert, right? His masculinity is still intact, right? If it wasn't what I or you thought it would be, it's ultimately because you did it wrong, right? It's not about me. And I
y
can then step in and teach you
yeah. Yeah,
how
and
to
I
do it
think
better.
that's the piece, like, not wanting to be fully seen in your inexperience, right?
Hmm.
He can't sit with, "I don't know what I was doing, I didn't know what I was doing
Hmm.
either," because that would threaten his sense of himself as the experienced one, as that's how he framed himself up in this whole situation. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think like shame, especially emasculation, can make men lash out. We all handle our shame differently, right? So I do
Mhm.
not want to make it seem like, oh, all men lash out when they feel ashamed,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
Because they don't, right? But some do, right? And that can be verbally or physically even, right? Because,
mhm,
one of the other parts of this masculinity script is that like domination is the
mhm.
antidote to emasculation, right? It's how we
Oh,
reestablish our sense of masculinity, right? It's by dominating it. And this is true
and
for women and other men.
yeah, and I mean, that sounds cruel, right? So because
Mhm,
instead of vulnerability, we get coldness, we get cruelty.
mhm. But I think the thing is, like, none of that excuses
Mm-mm.
what he did, right?
Mm.
Again, this is where we do both things at the same time, right? We
Mhm.
examine the systems that create behavior like this,
Yeah.
right? Or might create behavior like this, and then we hold individuals accountable,
Yeah.
right? Because, like, again, understanding the roots does not make this okay.
No, it doesn't. And I definitely want to talk about what this does to her
Mhm,
because she's asking, she literally is on a Reddit asking, like, well, am I wrong? Like, am I wrong for thinking this? Like, or maybe it was me. And the fact that she's even questioning herself
mhm.
tells me something pretty significant. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it tells us that she's been socialized to doubt
Yeah.
her experience, right? To
Mhm.
doubt her own read of the situation, right? To doubt her intuition.
Yeah, the baby was weird. I'm not gonna go too far into I'm not gonna go too hard on him because, as you said, that is a child.
Mhm.
But the baby was it was weird and it was inappropriate. I just wanted to be here with my friends and drink my boba, and here you are. And it's
Yeah.
harmful. And she knows
Yeah.
that on some level, but she's been taught, perhaps, if we're gonna add a little
Mhm.
color to this, to maybe not trust that knowing. So she has to come to a larger space for that validation of like No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
I
was
do think that
off.
that speaks to this sort of broader, some of the broader messages that women get around sex, which is often
Mhm.
that it's like about men's pleasure, right? That it is our, their job to perform, right? That it is for our
Mhm.
being men's, right? Like enjoyment,
Mhm.
right? And that if a man is not satisfied,
Mhm.
it is your fault.
Mhm. Women are expected to decenter their own pleasure, which is probably why Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B make some of y'all so mad. To be quite honest. To be quite honest.
Ah.
And if they made you mad, I know Trina made you mad. And if Trina made you mad, I know Foxy Brown and Kim made you mad. I think that women are expected and have been socialized to decenter their own pleasure.
Mhm.
And I can imagine in color redacted communities, especially, that is true because I don't hear Taylor Swift speaking about. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I just think it starts early. I think it starts with messages like boys will be boys and
Yes.
he's only mean to you because the amount of time, oh, he's only mean to you because he likes you. And I'm like, well, I don't like him.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
weird. Stop being
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Absolutely, right, so by the
Mhm.
time we get to a point of having sex, we've already internalized, right, this idea that your needs, your boundaries, your
Mhm.
enjoyment, right, your
Mhm.
pleasure are
Mhm.
secondary, right, to
Mhm.
his experience, right? If he's
Absolutely.
hitting you because he likes you, right, then it's like, it's your frame that's wrong, right?
Yeah, because you definitely hit on something there, and I do think that this is where we get the systems of DV. My eyes got
Mm,
wide because 'cause I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's true." And I think specifically in this case, she stopped him multiple times from doing something she wasn't comfortable with, right? And instead
yeah.
of respecting that, he listed it as something that she needs to, quote, unquote, "be more open to."
Right. And that
Mm.
is, I think, just a true violation
Yeah.
here. So
Mhm.
she set a boundary,
Mhm.
and then he is telling her that the setting of a boundary sexually is a problem.
And this is where I wanna bring in enthusiastic consent because consent
Please. Yeah.
isn't just yeah, it's not just, "Well, she didn't say no."
Hmm.
Consent is ongoing. At any point, consent can stop.
Yeah. And can
Consent
be
sh
withdrawn, right?
and
At
can
any
be
time.
withdrawn at
Yeah.
any time. So consent is ongoing. It
Hmm.
gets to be enthusiastic. It gets to be freely given. So when she stopped him from doing certain things, that was her withdrawing her consent, and a good partner would say, "Okay, no problem. What do you wanna do instead?"
Hmm. Yeah. But
Yeah.
instead, he made it an issue like, here's what you need to fix.
And I think this is a good place to bring in the Big Mouth reference. I know that I
Yeah.
may lose some people here. I know that Big Mouth was what it was. I know it was
Yeah.
very raunchy. I know I have seen
Yeah.
all of the pieces about, well, these are kids. And the reality is like the kids are doing a lot.
Hmm.
Okay. The
This is
babies,
when these things happen,
these are when these things happen. Right.
right?
And so,
Hmm.
it does have some good sex education embedded in it.
Yeah. Break it down.
Yeah, I would love to. So there's this whole arc, right, about enthusiastic consent. I think in
Hmm.
like the last season. And they
Okay.
literally have the kids learn like about asking, is this okay with you? Right? And checking in throughout. And they talk about how consent isn't just about big things, right?
Mm.
It's not just about intercourse. It's about every single step of the intimacy process.
Okay, yeah. So it's bigger than just do you want to have sex, right? It's also can I touch you here? Do
Mhm.
you like this? Is this
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And that turns sex into a conversation instead of this
Hmm.
performance, right? Which, by the way, I also use Big Mouth as an IFS tool because I think it's really good as an IFS tool. Like the
Hmm.
different parts of you that might want different things. So you might have a part that is very curious, and then you might have a part that's scared. And those parts need to talk to each other so that they don't remain in tension with one another. Yeah.
Ooh, that's really smart. Yeah, you're really helping people kind of notice their own internal conflict and then negotiate it, which is one of the things you want to do. And by the way, IFS stands for internal family systems, which
Thank
is
you.
a type of therapy, if anybody is unaware.
Yes, and it's also, AKA parts work.
Yeah.
So because you want something and you can also be nervous about something, like both of those parts of you can coexist. They may not be coexisting well, but both can be true, right? And a
Hmm.
good partner will meet you in that complexity of that
Yeah.
truth. Yeah.
So then, how do we give feedback around sex in a healthy way?
Well, timing matters. The person in the Reddit post did not get it right.
Hmm.
Don't talk to in public is not the way, right?
No.
if something hurts or violates your boundaries, say it immediately. You don't want to maybe wait until the next day. You certainly don't want to
Mhm.
wait until you're in public to bring up something that maybe someone crossed the line, or to bring up something that's a very intimate conversation, right?
Right. "Ow, that hurts. I don't
Mhm.
wanna do that." That is an in the moment conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then if it's like but if it's next time feedback, like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
would enjoy it more if you did this differently," then that may be a conversation where you can kind of sit on so that you can understand for yourself what you actually need. Like, you maybe don't wanna ambush someone right after sex or the next day around friends, like, that may not be appropriate if you don't fully understand for you, if you haven't processed the contact or, like, you guys having sex for yourself. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. This comes up all the time in my work as
Mhm.
well. How do you talk to your own folks about, like, how do you know it's the
Mhm.
right time?
I think for me, what I would say to a client is like, I think the right time is a time that both of you guys could actually hear each other out, right?
Mhm.
Starting
Yeah.
with what you enjoy and starting with you, right? Because it's your experience that you're talking about. Hey, I loved it when you did this. It felt really good when you did this to me. And then you can go in with like, and because it's a both and situation, because
Mhm.
sex is not just binary or linear. It's and I think I would enjoy it more if we could try this, or if you did this, or if you touched me here, or did this a
Mhm.
little longer, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So affirmation first, then suggestion.
Yeah, because if you lead
Mhm.
with criticism, that is, opening up to defensiveness really quick. Criticism is going to beget defensiveness. But if you
Yes.
lead with, like, here's what I really liked, here's what I enjoyed, if you lead with what it felt like for you, and here's what was working for you, then it's like that opens the door to what can improve the experience to be even better the next time.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to name here that a partner who is not open to feedback is a red flag.
Huge one. Huge one. Being open to feedback is part of partnership. Being coachable because everybody's body is different,
Mhm.
sexual or otherwise, right? This doesn't even
Yeah.
have to just pertain to sex. Like, there may be needs that you have and wants that you have. And again, like we talked in the first episode, will and skill. Like, having someone open to that is really important.
Yeah, because contrary to the messages that men get about how they're supposed to perform sexually, sex
Hmm.
is always a thing that we learn together, right? Like
Absolutely.
none of us are born with an innate knowledge of like what our partners want from us sexually, right? We only
Absolutely.
get better through conversation, right? And anything else, I think this is an important thing, right? I didn't think to say this in my notes, but I'm going to say it now. Anything else is coincidence,
Hmm.
right? If you have
Yeah.
sex for the first time and it is mind blowing and it's amazing, that's great. I'm not taking that away from you. And it is coincidence. It's not about prowess and it's not about skill, right? It's that your bodies just so happen to fit together in a great and pleasing way
Way.
for at
Yep.
least one of you, right? Maybe both of you.
And we hope for both of you, but I
Yeah.
do think that that's really important, and I think this is where we also get to talk about the gendered messages around sex,
Mm,
because men get one set of messages, women get another, and we haven't even, like, we also need to talk about same-sex couples and queer
hmm
couples and, like, how sexuality is on a spectrum. So, again, like, it's different bodies, and as you just said, right, it is a coincidence if it feels just like, "Oh, this was really good." And
hmm
there's nothing necessarily that you have to think of to do again, right?
Right.
It's not a, "Oh my gosh, I gotta contort it this way, I gotta do that," because now we're getting into a place that's gonna be hard to catch up to, because that was a now you're trying to perform something that
Yeah.
just felt really good and natural in that moment as you guys came
hmm
together. Yeah.
Yeah, again, so right for men, it's just this, you should be amazing in bed from the jump. You should just know what to do. You
Mhm.
should know how much pressure, how much this, how much that, how much no, how much yes, right? And if you're not amazing, then you're not a real man, right? That's the criticism of the messaging.
Yeah, and I think for women, especially cishet women, it's your pleasure doesn't matter as much as his. You should
hmm
be willing to do whatever he wants. No, you should not. And if you have boundaries, you're uptight or rigid. No, you are not. Right? Like, sex gets to be pleasurable for you. Right? I think that's why shows like Bridgerton are so empowering. Like, I finally decided to double click into this season. Have you watched Bridgerton?
No,
Dang,
I just
Jason.
say, even if I've watched an episode now, I just say no. I haven't watched any episodes.
No, that's fair. Eat me up. Eat me up, friend. Like, that's fair. You ate that. You ate that. You ate
No,
that.
I've not seen any of it at all. No,
Well deserved though. Ate that up.
thank you. Thank you.
So in Bridgerton, I think the appeal really is we are watching women's pleasure be centered in such a
Hmm.
way that is not just about sex, it's about desire.
Okay.
Right? And I think even in this most recent season, we are actually being able to explore. So there, the mother of the Bridgerton household,
Okay.
her husband has been dead for many years. And of course, this is set way back when. And so, back then it wasn't seemly for a woman to like reach out again. But there's this man who takes her interest. And I got emotional because I'm watching,
Hmm.
like, I know how much she loved her husband. And she's going through all this process of like, they've established that they both want to connect in that way. They want to sleep together. And she's like, I still have children. I have to figure this out. Oh my gosh, what does my body look like? Does it do the same things? I'm not really sure. And he's like, we can go as slow as you want.
Hmm.
We don't, it doesn't have to be this thing. And she's like, no, no, I want to do this. And there's just all these questions I have. And so I
Yeah.
think I got emotional because I do think what I really appreciate about Shonda Rhimes and a lot of her writing that she has done for shows is that she has always positioned women to ensure that they are thought of,
Yeah.
right? By
Hmm.
whoever the partner is, whether it's man, woman, non-binary, whoever it is, they are thought of in such a beautiful way. And so I think that it's now becoming kind of like, no, we should be thinking about our
Hmm.
pleasure. No, we do get to say no. No, like I do require more of you other than just like humping me and leave. Like that's no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to Jill Scott's Tiny Desk, you should because it's
I'm
great.
ready to listen to it. I'm gonna listen to it once we wrap. That whole album to me, I know people had mixed reviews, but I love the album. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
But
was
she
really
talks
good.
about it reminded me because she talks about some of her lyrics that are like, don't just
That's
come
probably
here and
where I
hump
got
me.
it from.
Like,
Yeah, just
talk to me.
don't
Yeah. Uh-huh.
don't
Yeah.
just get on top of me. That's my pleasure deserves to be. And Jill Scott has been talking about this for years. So everybody
Hmm.
who was like, what is it? I'm like, no, Jill Scott has been Jill Scott
Yeah.
for a while.
The whole
Yeah.
time.
The whole time.
The whole time.
The
She's just
whole time.
I think these are such lovely counterpoints to
Hmm.
these really harmful messages. Again, right? And both sides of the message are harmful,
Hmm.
on the for men and for women. And so I appreciate these ideas that are just, in opposition to those.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think men are performing instead of connecting and get those messages about that. And then women are
Hmm.
enduring instead of enjoying. And that's not how sex should be.
Yeah. What's the alternative for folks?
Yeah, I think the alternative is approaching sex as something that you're exploring. It's a journey. Take the
Yeah.
journey together. It's not something that you have to perform or endure. It's something that you're discovering together with said person that you are going on said journey with.
Yeah. It just that brings up it's the vulnerability piece, right? For both people.
Absolutely. And I want to bring in another layer here because we've been talking mostly about heterosexual dynamics, but queer
Okay.
folks also get messages about how sex, quote unquote, should be, right?
Say more. Okay.
So even in queer relationships, there are expectations because there are things that people think happen. And so, like, this is how two women have to have sex, or this is what tops and bottoms do. And those expectations can be just as restrictive as
Hmm.
heteronormative ones.
Yeah.
Sexuality is a spectrum. Yes.
Yeah. So then we're back to this place of it's
Mhm.
about performance and meeting expectations instead of really figuring out and exploring together what actually feels good, right, for the people who are involved.
Yeah, and then you have to also think about the outlier things like religion, purity,
Mm.
culture, all of that. And I remember when Teen Mom was on the air. What a time, again,
Yeah.
high school. And people are walking into sexual experiences with so much like so much baggage and so much expectations that they didn't even agree to and so much conditioning. And that's a lot to enter the bedroom with. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, to go back to where we started, I think this is why communication around
Mhm.
sex is so hard because
Mhm.
it's really not just can we navigate the awkwardness around like what
Mhm.
we want and don't want in the moment. It's also navigating all of these value systems, belief systems, societal messaging, religious messaging, community messaging that we've all internalized just about like what sex is supposed to be.
Right. And this is where I think IFS or parts work,
Mhm.
that lens is very helpful because you might have, again, a part that is curious and does want to explore in this space. And then there's a
Mhm.
part that is ashamed because of all that conditioning, because of all that these systemic things that you just named, right? And those parts are now in conflict.
Right. And so then it's about getting the parts to talk to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
what does my curious part want? What is it afraid of?
Mm,
What is this afraid part trying to protect me from? What does it think will happen if I allow myself to get more curious? How can I honor both my curious part? How can I soothe my fearful part? Yeah.
yeah. Okay. And so then we're communicating that to partners.
Yeah. Hey, part of me is really interested in trying this, and
Mhm.
part of me is nervous because XYZ. And a good partner will meet you there and should meet you there. I rarely use shoulds, but in this case, they should meet you there. And it is a red
Yeah.
flag if they do not.
So then I want to add another layer to this,
Yeah.
which I'm learning from you really is what about when chronic illness enters the picture?
Yeah. We
How
have
are
to
you thinking
talk
about that?
about, oh my goodness. Sorry, please finish. I got really excited.
No, I was just saying like where does this idea enter in, right? What is the same? What feels different?
Yes, chronic illness is something I live with chronic illness. I live with fibro and endo and no longer adeno, but I
Hmm,
have for almost going on a decade now. Your chronic illness becomes a third in the bedroom, and it's not the type of third that you like, you know?
yeah, exactly. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so when you're navigating chronic illness, sex isn't just about desire or communication anymore. It's about capacity, right? Capacity comes into the
Hmm.
space. It's, hey, I want to, my body doesn't want to. My body
Hmm.
can't do that today, or we can do this, but not that because I'm in pain, right? I'm having a flare, which, that then comes into the situation. So it's like an unwanted
Yeah.
visitor all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like that is going to require like an even higher level of communication and flexibility to navigate.
Absolutely. And it also requires a partner without the chronic illness to not take it personally. And so I know folks who have chronic illness struggle with this because it is hard to
Mm,
find, right? It is hard
okay.
to find because of all the messaging and because of all the socialization and like you as a person should just be able to do sex. But the reality is that's very ableist to think,
Mm, hmm.
right? At some point we all will become disabled in some way, shape, or form. And
Yeah.
if your partner says, even if they're in a like normal functioning body, if they're able bodied and they say I can't today, you wouldn't take that super personally, I would hope. But
Yeah.
if you do, interesting, because that's not a rejection of you. They may have other things. So you can understand capacity in that sense. But when it comes to somebody whose body literally is like, no,
Mhm.
that's somebody
Yeah.
honoring their body limits. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see how that is hard, especially if it's frequent.
Yeah, right? No one can anticipate a flare, right? Some of us
Hmm.
can, who live with chronic illness, can know, like, oh, okay, like I'm starting to feel like less or low energy, or man, I'm starting to get dizzy a lot more. And I do think that it is very difficult. It is hard because not only are you thinking about yourself, you also have this desire. You also want to be connected to in this way. I think people think people with disabilities or chronic illness don't think about sex at all. And then that's not true.
Hmm.
We need to expand maybe what we think of as intimacy, because if
Yeah.
penetrative sex isn't always an option, which for some people it is not, what else can create that connection? And there are plenty of options.
Right. I've talked about this with couples in my own work, which is just thinking about what are other forms of sexual intimacy? What
Mhm.
are other forms of physical intimacy that are
Mhm.
non-sexual? What about verbal intimacy, emotional intimacy, or just being sort of present with each other in this moment? And so I think it's, trying to help couples think through like what is the need actually that is trying to get met? And is the only way to meet that need through sex?
Exactly. And I think that this connects to this video I think I shared with you from tonight's
Uh-huh.
conversation. So we're going to transition and we are going to get into that one.
Doing it.
Cue transition. What do you do if your partner is amazing? Like he's amazing emotionally, physically. Earlier this year, I had to have 2 brain surgeries. He stayed with me in the hospitals. He even washed my butt some of the times.
Damn.
But he wasn't working for a couple of months, and I'm 24 now. So I basically feel like I'm just real grown, and I just want to know, like, how long.
Tell me more about this 24 grown. That's not me talking, that's the crowd. So what's your question?
Basically, like, we haven't been out on any dates or anything recently, and I just want to know, like, how long do I wait before I feel appreciated?
This saying. and you don't feel appreciated, can't win.
This is at the point that we have to acknowledge people's capacities. Because while you were in your season of being taken care of, he was the one doing the nursing back to health, right? And he could probably still be trying to regain his capacity for himself after spending his year taking care of you. And as you've gotten able to be better and, oh, I feel better now, I want to go on dates, he's trying to process what he just went through. So instead of you saying, how do I get to the space of me feeling appreciated? What have you done to show appreciation to your man for just birthing you back to health?
You said that you're 24 and you're grown, right? I think this is exactly where you showing your age at. I want to offer that you learn the signs of a good man. Because if you don't, you will become an of-age, mature woman that looks back at him and his wife and his family, and you say, I really up.
Before I got into podcasting, I was a registered nurse. And I'm going to tell you, the idea of love that we have in our youth is not real love. That love where that person is incapacitated, can't wipe themselves, but that partner is there every single day hitting that call light, making sure I bring that meal, watching me wipe and say, you know what, you're not doing it right. Let me step in and do it. That idea of love you got exposed to at 24. You live long enough, you will outlive your money and your house and those cars. And sometimes your children, they get their own lives. They move to different places and ain't nobody there to take care of you but that woman you treated right or that man you treated right. And I want you to just think about that right now before you make any kind of decisions, because you got a man that showed you very young that he's willing to do that.
All right, everybody, here is where we are going to stop. This is going to be our part 1 of this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just got a little long, friends, and so we're going to split it in
It did.
half.
We are.
And so we will, for the next release, we will have this episode come out. But until then, you can find us on Instagram at the Weight and Wonder Podcast. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and drop us a comment. We'll link all the videos and resources in the show notes for the next episode.
Absolutely. We're so happy that you're here. So please, if you can share, subscribe, like, do all the things so that people can find us, because we want them to be a part of the Wonder Club too. Ooh, Wonder Club.
Absolutely.
That's a good name.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. You heard it here first, folks.
Well, the Wonder Club. We want y'all to be a part of the Wonder Club. So hopefully you are able to come back in 2 weeks, and then you will see us finish up this conversation. And so, as always, please hold the weight.
Find the wonder. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.